chances are you're doing your marketing totally wrong because you're marketing to everyone. Today on the Bar Business Podcast, learn why 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your revenue. Master how to use your POS system to uncover the answers to questions most owners never ask that supercharge your marketing. And discover when to leverage your best customer so that every decision gets easier and cheaper. Hello and welcome to the Bar Business Podcast, where we help bar owners increase profits, attract loyal guests, and simplify operations so you can avoid burnout and finally enjoy your life outside of your bar. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, the Bar Business Coach. So today on the Bar Business Podcast, we are talking about how to identify your most profitable customer segment and build your strategy around them. And fundamental to business is the Pareto principle. And if you're not familiar with the Pareto principle, said that way, the 80-20 principle. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients. That's a very common statement, right? 20% of your work produces 80% of your results. That's just kind of a standard rule. Now, is that always true? Is it always exactly 80-20? Well, of course not. But it's a darn good rule of thumb. And when you focus on who's paying most your bills and get them to spend a little bit more, it's the easiest marketing in the world that you can do. And this is especially true right now because what we're seeing today in our markets, instability, negative first quarter growth in the United States, it looks like is where we're going to be. And that might even adjust down a little bit, right? We have supply chain issues with oil prices spiking. We have all sorts of disruption in the world around us, consumer spending dropping, and quite frankly, it doesn't look like going into the summer things are getting better. It looks like they're getting worse. And so to survive that, we need to focus on how can we leverage our existing customer base? How can we build from what we have so that we can survive if we do enter into a rough time? And guess what? If all the doom and gloom we're hearing from the media and the economists and everybody, if everyone is wrong, that's kind of funny to say. But if everybody's wrong and you are focusing on your regulars, guess what? That just means they're going to come in more. They're going to spend more. They're going to make you more revenue. So whether we're going into a really bad period of time and that's your thought process, this is the way to protect yourself. If everything gets really good, this is the way to maximize how good it gets. So the strategies we're talking about today work: good economy, bad economy, high consumer sentiment, low consumer sentiment. And that's why I think this is essential for everyone's business. And today, really what we're going to do is talk through why marketing to everyone fails, finding your most profitable segment, what to do once you have that information, how to market specifically to that segment, and then we're going to tie it into the bigger strategic picture before I let you go today. So let's go ahead and dive in. Why marketing to everyone fails. And we've kind of talked about this with the Pareto principle introduction there, but generic promotions attract low check one visitor customers. It kind of reminds me of my dad. My dad was an orthopedic surgeon. He owned restaurants. And I worked with him for a little bit running his medical legal consulting business. And we would go to lunch all the time. And one of his favorite places to go to lunch was Steak and Shake. Not because the food was great, because it was cheap and he had a coupon. And if he had a coupon, we had to go to Steak and Shake for lunch. He'd go to Steak and Shake and tell me about the new cars he wanted to buy, but we had to go to Steak and Shake for lunch because he had a coupon. We were not one-time visitors. We were quite frequent visitors because they frequently set out coupons. But the only time we went to Steak and Shake is when he had a coupon and he wanted to use his coupon. If you just put coupons out, you're going to get that kind of guest, people that only come when you're discounting, and people that, quite frankly, are not going to come in without a discount. That's not a good business plan, especially with the way the economy is working today. As I mentioned, we have dropping consumer spending. We have people that are feeling uneasy right now. And those value customers, yes, we can probably get them, but there's going to be no loyalty there. So marketing to everyone in this regard, especially if we're trying to do it through discounting, is a terrible idea. Another thing to put forward when we're trying to rein in our marketing budgets, which hopefully all of us are trying to rein in our costs a little bit right now. That's something I would recommend everyone does, given the current state of everything. Rein in those dollars a little bit. But every dollar you spend acquiring a stranger, which is expensive, is $1 you don't spend deepening loyalty, which is cheaper. The value of your dollar is better spent building loyalty with your existing folks than bringing in strangers. And that customer acquisition cost to bring a stranger in off the street is a heck of a lot higher than just taking care of your regulars. We've talked about this before. We're hammering it again, though, because honestly, guys, I think with the way we're looking at the economy right now, this is crucial, absolutely crucial to survival and thriving as we go into summer. The math, though, bottom line, is always going to favor retention over acquisition. So we're not talking about niching down. We're talking about knowing who's already choosing you, knowing where your dollars are going to have the most impact for your bottom line, and hammering there because of all the instability that's going on today. So how do we find this profitable segment to market to? Well, I want you to answer 4 questions. Who visits more than twice a month? Of those people that visit more than twice a month, who spends above your average check? When do they come in and what do they order? When we find the intersection of all 4, that is your core segment that you want to focus on. Now let's break those down. Who visits more than twice a month? We're talking guest frequency. Now, there are different ways you can determine guest frequency. Obviously, your bartenders kind of have a good idea of guest frequency. If you're a neighborhood bar, maybe you have a lot of tabs that are in by somebody's first name, and you can just pull all the tabs that are in by that name. If Funny Rob comes in every day for happy hour and his tab always says Funny Rob, pull all the tabs that say Funny Rob, and now we know what Funny Rob spends. The other way to do it is to go into your POS system and look at credit card transactions. A lot of times you can pull credit card transaction data with customer names or check data with customer names, and then you can pull that data into a spreadsheet, sort by customer name, boom, you're good. The only thing I caution you on is when you start moving around customer names and credit card data, be very careful of PII. Don't let that, and for the record, PII is personally identifiable information. Don't let that get out there. We don't want to leak credit card numbers. We don't want to put people's names in jeopardy where somebody could come and hack our systems and get those or create other situations for us. But you can get customer names a lot of times in your check transactions. Read that data, sort by customer name. Now we know, hey, this is when they're coming in. Then, once we figure out who's coming in more than twice a month, we want to answer that question, what is their average check? And that average check is key to understanding how valuable they are. People who spend more generally put more money on your bottom line. So understand your total average check or your average transaction. And then we're going to take that list of people that come in more than twice a month and say, okay, these are the folks on that list that are above, their average transaction exceeds our overall average check or average transaction for the bar. Now, once we have that list, we're going to look at when do these folks come in? What is their daytime pattern? Are a lot of them Friday night or a lot of them Tuesday afternoon? Could frankly be either. I mean, some of your best money regulars, at least in my experience, especially in the neighborhood bar market, are 2 to 5 weekday folks. And sometimes they're weekday and weekend folks. They may not have the biggest check average overall, but they tend to be at or above average, and they're good for, a bucket of beer every day. That's real revenue. That's really trackable. That's a relationship you want to encourage. Or they're good for 2 or 3 cocktails every day after work. A lot of times in the neighborhood bar segment, these folks are not your Friday night guys. Some of them are, right? Maybe you have a couple different buckets here when we look at day and time patterns. But when we can bucket these folks that we've identified, okay, they're coming in more than twice a month, they're spending more than the average guest. When we can bucket them by day and time, we now know where to deploy deals, where we want to focus our time and energy, because we have these time and day buckets. Then we want to look at what do they order, category breakdown. So we've identified them, we've seen when they come in, bucketed them that way, and now we're going to look at what are they ordering. We can bucket them that way. Any buckets that are really thin, and by thin I mean in data when we say thin, it means you just don't have a lot there, right? So if I have a regular that comes in every week, he spends above my guest check average on Saturday morning at 11 a.m., and he orders gin. And I don't have anybody else Saturday morning at 11 a.m., and nobody else in my matrix that I've made or my groupings that I've made is just a straight gin drinker. Okay, that guy's probably not someone that you're going to worry about. We're looking for where these 4 data points intersect. So the 2 requirements being twice a month, spend above average check, and then the way we're going to find these intersections, daytime patterns, and category breakdowns, where you have a thicker data set, 5, 10, 15 people in a category breakdown or a daytime pattern, or better yet, a category breakdown within a daytime pattern, that's where we know we can focus our information or focus our marketing. So how are we going to do things with this information? Well, the first thing we're going to do is build promotions around their behavior, not the calendar. If we know we have a bunch of people that come in for dinner and spend a lot of money on Thursday night, let's figure out ways to bring people in for dinner on Thursday night or to reward those people, get them to spend more on Thursday night. We're going to look at our menu depth. This is telling us a lot about what's driving our business, right? Because we're looking at regulars that spend more money and when they come in and what they're ordering. So when we look at menu depth, we can see from all these patterns and the category breakdowns and what they're spending and how they order, where we're making money on our menu. And quite frankly, if we have a big group of these folks that are drinking martinis, maybe we need to look at our martini selection and add new martinis or switch up our martinis. Like, what can we do with martinis to add a little bit of menu depth? Because we know we already over-index in that segment. If it's burgers, what can we do with our burgers to tweak our food a little bit to leverage on the fact that we're already over-indexing in that area, right? We're identifying where we win, and now we want to find ways to add menu depth where we win and potentially remove it where we're not winning. The third thing we can do with this information is we can work on staff recognition. Your team needs to know these people. They need to know them by name. They need to know their preferences. And as I've talked about a lot on this podcast, they should probably know their dogs' names, their kids' names, what they do, who they like, what they're interested in. Like, the more we know about our guests, the better personalized, the better interaction we can have with them. Yes, for folks coming in off the street we've never seen before, we want to give them a great experience that has high-level hospitality. We want to do that for our regulars as well. But the thing about being a regular in a bar, and I don't care if we are talking about the diviest dive bar or the fanciest high-end bar, bars are about recognition. When you're a bar regular, you don't want to just show up, and it's not Applebee's, right? Go to Applebee's every week. Yeah, maybe they know your name. Maybe they recognize you a little bit, but there's no relationship there. In a bar, it's all about relationship. So we need our staff to recognize these folks, to know them, to understand they're valuable and treat them as such, and to foster and build that relationship to keep our business moving forward. That recognition is going to drive repeat visits more reliably than a discount ever could. There's no loyalty app required here. We've talked about how to drive loyalty through spending money. I'm not even talking about money right now because I know things are getting tough, especially with where gas prices look like they're going. So this isn't about loyalty. Well, it's all about loyalty, but this isn't about building loyalty through an app. This isn't about spending money right now. This is just saying recognize people, recognize their patterns, and plan your marketing around them. So let's talk about planning that marketing. How do you market specifically to this segment or multiple segments that you found in this analysis? First thing is email and SMS. You should be capturing email addresses. Maybe that's through a loyalty system. Maybe that's through online orders. Maybe that's through your website. Maybe that's by going, hey, man, we send out emails every once in a while. Can I get your email address? And just asking and writing it down on a piece of paper. Newsletters do not have to be high tech. A contact list in Gmail and sending out an email. That works. Not the best way to do it, but it works. I definitely do that with some things. Now, when you have that data and when you're sending emails or if you're doing text messages, one great way to reward your top guests, the people that are actually paying to keep you afloat, is to give them a VIP status where they're getting the information a day or two before everybody else. Maybe you're doing a beer dinner next month and they get the email first. Hey, we're doing a beer dinner next month. We got 40 slots open for reservations. We're offering it to y'all first before we open it up to everybody else. You have 48 hours to jump on this before it gets open to the general public. It's simple. That literally costs you nothing. It creates scarcity. It creates urgency. It drives reservations. It pushes your event faster and harder than anything else you could do. And again, it literally costs you nothing. So there are ways when we're doing email or SMS, depending on what you're doing, or, text being SMS, depending on how you're handling your business, there are ways to drive this urgency just by treating your regulars as special and putting them on a VIP list, where all that means is you get marketed to 48 hours before everyone else. For your social content, yes, do some come drink here posts. Yes, do some posts aimed at pulling in outside folks, but also look at the identity of the people that are your regulars. Mirror that identity. Don't be generic. Understand that your bar has two parts. There are two parts that make up your bar's personality. Your brand imaging, the colors, the textures, the materials you use. And I've talked about that a lot. The other part that makes up your identity or your brand personality is who the hell's there? Who's sitting around? What are they like? Right? Because if I walk into a bar and everybody's wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats, that's a lot different than if I walk into a bar and everybody's wearing steel-toed boots and overalls, which is a lot different than if I walk into a bar and everybody's wearing golf shirts, which is a lot different than I walk into a bar and everybody's wearing suits. Your guests help generate your brand identity. Now, your brand identity also determines who those guests are that generate your brand identity. It's a little bit of a feedback loop there, but understand who your guests are and then build off that. Double down on that. Your social content should mirror the identity of the people that are your best regulars. This also leads to referral behavior because similar people run in similar circles. When you double down on that good guest kind of persona, that guest avatar being who's bringing you the most business, guess what? They're going to bring in their friends that are just like them. And then it's a flywheel, folks. It just starts spinning. And again, especially as we're getting into what looks like potentially a little bit of a rocky economy this summer. This is really important. And then to understand if all of this is working, I want you to look at your new customers. Do they look to you like your core segment? If they do, that means what you're doing is working. That means this is the way to go for you. So let's step back and take a look at the bigger strategic picture a little bit before I let you go. This is not a marketing exercise entirely. This is a business strategy. We can use this data to inform hours, staffing models, physical space, even expansion decisions. Now, we didn't discuss all that today, but you know what? If you want to talk about how all that can tie in as well, get a hold of me. I love to chat with people. Right? I'm happy to jump on a call, just grab a strategy session. We can talk through it. But the thing here is, the more I can understand my core guest base, the people that keep my lights on, the people that drive the business, the people that allow me to make my payroll every month, the more I can double down on that segment, both by trying to increase the loyalty and the spend among those people that already come in and increase the loyalty and spend of new guests who fit that segment because when they come in, it feels like home to them. The more I can do that, the more I can build a bar that is going to be resilient through any market trend, resilient through any political trend, resilient in its entirety because I have community, I have relationships, I have trust, and all of those build to sales. And then you combine that with a little bit of cost control and you have profitability. That about wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed today's insights, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you are ready to take your bar to the next level, schedule a strategy session with me by clicking the link in the show notes below. Until next time, have a great day, and we will talk again later.